Hi, my name is Russ Petrus, and I'm the Program Director for FutureChurch. And I'm here today with Sister Chris Schenk, who is FutureChurch's co-founder and who currently serves as FutureChurch's Executive Director Emerita. And we're here together today because we're going to be leading a pilgrimage to Greece, following in the footsteps of our foremothers, and that's October 5th through the 14th. And we're just really excited about it and want to share some with you and hope that you'll join us on this really exciting trip. So Chris, you'll be serving as the educational director.
That's right.
And I'll be serving as the spiritual director. And then, of course, on the ground in Greece, we have a phenomenal guide, Aliki, who's an expert in Greek culture and in Greek history and some of the sites.
Great. I have to say I'm really excited about the way this tour integrates some of the central things about Greek history, the history of the prophetic movement through the oracles at Delphi, because these were also foundational in the Judeo-Christian tradition, female prophets. And you can see why, when you listen to the story of the oracles, it was just part of the culture. So we're really integrating the story of women's leadership in early Christianity with the Greco-Roman culture in which Christianity spread and in which the witness of women was so influential. And of course, along the way and central to it all is Paul's missionary journeys through Greece, ably abetted by Lydia in Philippi, and of course Prisca and Aquila in Corinth.
So speaking of St. Paul's travels and his missionary activity, we will be gathering and everyone will be arriving on October 5th and 6th, that's a Thursday and Friday, in Thessaloniki. Mm-hmm. And what are we going to see there? What's...
Well, Thessaloniki was sort of it's a very important letter. The very first Christian writing was Paul's letter to the Thessalonians. So I think that, however, Paul, he was there probably about 3 weeks, probably worked out of a local synagogue, was not well received by the local Jewish community, and was hounded out of town. Even to the point that when he went to Berea, people from Thessalonica came and hounded him out of Berea too. But his witness must have been very powerful for him to have already created a community. And we know from Acts that there were many leading women in Thessalonica who were part of that community. So in terms of what we'll see, it's mostly Roman ruins, which are also very important to understanding the culture. But there's a wonderful Byzantine museum there that has 3rd and 4th century artifacts. There's not much there that date to the 1st century Christian mission, but it's still all integrated. So
great.
It'll be good.
Great. And then from there we head into Philippi, which was a center of some of Paul's early Christian activity. It gets really exciting in Philippi. So why don't you tell us a little bit about what we're going to see there?
Philippi was a military outpost that dates to Philip, is named for Philip of Macedon. It's a Roman military outpost. And Paul went expecting to find, it sounds like he was expecting to find a gathering of the Jewish community there down by the river at Philippi. But what in fact he found was a gathering of female God-fearers. So these women were people who were interested in Judaism but hadn't become Jews. And Lydia was their leader. And so Lydia was a prominent purple dye trader. She was a wealthy woman because to trade in purple dye goods is only the wealthy could afford those dyed clothing. And so Paul met with the community, and Lydia became Christian. We will see the river where they met and probably the river where Lydia was baptized. And then we have to remember Euodia and Syntyche, who in the letter to the Philippians, Lydia comes to us from Acts, which were written by Luke, but Euodia and Syntyche are two of the main leaders, female leaders of the community at Philippi. And so much so that the argument that Paul's trying to settle is probably an argument between the two of them, who may have been among the diakonoi and episcopoi at Philippi. So there's a lot of exciting stuff in terms of early ruins too, dating to the 2nd century. So I think that's going to be a really it's a beautiful site.
Yeah, it'll be a highlight, I think, for everyone on the trip. And then we'll explore with Aliki some of the Greek culture and some other Greek sites as we travel and make our way to the hilltop monasteries of Meteora. And there, we're going to visit these beautiful monasteries. And Chris, you're going to share a little bit about some of what these monasteries were like, especially for women.
Yeah, and I think the monastic tradition, is what the origins of monasticism actually come from 2 women, Marcella in Rome and Macrina in Asia Minor. And in fact, Macrina's brother Basil is credited as being the father of monasticism, but he based his model of monasticism on his sister's community at Anissa. Likewise, Jerome is often credited, but in fact, Marcella had already been gathering women in her home for years before. So this we will sort of trace the roots of the monastic tradition and then see it as it is lived out today and sort of how it was founded really in later centuries. That monasteries here date, I think, till later than Marcella and Macrina, but it's still rooted in that same tradition.
Great. So then our trip takes us to Delphi, where Aliki is going to share a lot with us about the history of Delphi and what was going on there. And I hear it's one of the more beautiful places in all of the world, and certainly in Greece. So I'm looking forward to that. And then finally on Wednesday, we arrive at Corinth. Mm-hmm. And Corinth is the site of some really exciting stuff too that we'll be able to see.
Yes, and I think with Ephesus in Alexandria and certainly Rome, but Corinth was one of the major crossroads in the Middle East. It's a port, and so it's all the different cultures of the world sort of met there. And but the people we are most interested in are Prisca with her husband Aquila, who with Paul, actually they originated house churches in Corinth, Ephesus, and Rome. They were tent makers, and Paul stayed with them, making tents originally in Corinth to support himself. And it was such a successful mission for Paul in terms of how to evangelize from a central location that he had them go to Ephesus and then eventually to Rome. So Prisca with her husband Aquila could be counted as an apostle to the Gentiles equally as Paul. And here it's extensive archaeological sites dating to the 1st century. There's even an inscription to Erastus, who is named in the Acts of the Apostles as a city leader. So it sort of really roots it in archaeological history. There's a great museum there that I recall had some of the things of healing that I found interesting. And it's a wonderful site. And then we'll talk a bit about the Corinthian women prophets.
Sure, great. And we'll also be able to go to the seaport at Schenk and see where Phoebe, the famous Phoebe from Romans 16, who delivered the letter to the Romans, where her church was, and she served there as a diakonos, as a deacon. And so we'll talk a little bit about that.
One other thing about Corinth that I forgot to mention, there are shops there all over the place, ruins, where one of them could have been, who knows, the shop where Paul and Prisca and Aquila made tents. So, sort of exciting.
That is exciting. And then finally, we'll be able to get to Athens. What's a trip to Greece without Athens?
Yeah, and Athens was the center of philosophical thought, and so we'll visit the place, Mars Hill, where Paul gave the letter, or he spoke, the Acts tells us, about the unknown God. And it's also, and he engaged in philosophical debate with Stoics and Epicureans. But to me, one of the overarching things about Athens, aside from the Parthenon, which is a temple to Athena, is in fact Athena, who is a Greek goddess of wisdom. And so it's no wonder that in early Christianity, particularly Eastern Christianity, we have this reverence for holy wisdom, Hagia Sophia in Istanbul, because it was already imbued within the culture to love wisdom, and certainly Athena was exemplified that for people who worshipped her for millennia before Christianity arrived. So I love the integration of God in both feminine and masculine metaphor that is in our tradition as religious people, not somewhat in Christianity, but certainly in the surrounding cultures. You see the people who converted to Christianity already had that love for holy wisdom within them that would become then an image for the Holy Spirit in the Christian Trinity.
As you can tell, Chris has a lot to share, and there's so much that we can learn from her. So I'm really excited. I'm really excited for this trip, and for my part, I'm excited to be developing these prayer experiences where we're reading from the letter to the Corinthians while we're at Corinth. We're reading about Phoebe and welcoming Phoebe into our hearts, just as Paul had asked the Romans to welcome Phoebe into their homes and into their church. So I'm really excited about that piece of it. I think that's going to be a really energizing piece for all of us. And so this is just a little bit of what you can expect on the trip. We hope that we've whetted your appetite some, and that you'll decide to join us. And to do that, you can go to www.futurechurch.org/Greece 2017. That's futurechurch.org/Greece 2017. You can see that down along the bottom of your screen. Just go to that. You can download a brochure, and you can also submit the registration form. There is one thing that I want to note, and I hope that some of you will take advantage of this, and we do have an early registration deal. And this early registration is before April 30th. So if you register before April 30th, the cost of the pilgrimage for the land is $1,800, which was the cost of the trip a couple years ago.
Yeah, which is pretty amazing. And
prices have gone up. So we're offering that if you register early. That includes your meals, your bus travel, transport, the prayer services, your hotel rooms and all that. You will be responsible for your own airfare, and we have some tips on the website about how you can go about booking that too. And then after April 30th, the cost does go up to $1,900. So take advantage of that early bird special. Go to www.futurechurch.org/Greece 2017 and sign up today.
Great.
Thanks
I'm
so much.
looking forward to being with my buddy Russ.
That'll be fun.